Today I'll be refuting the speech that uniforms in schools have a significant positive effect on public schools. The advocate used 5 secondary claims. Uniforms promote good discipline, they reduce fighting and violence, they reduce distractions in school and outside of school. They stress that individuality and self-expression are not determined by your clothing brand, and that uniforms promote school spirit and cost less. The first claim, that uniforms promote good discipline, is based off of a study that is over 10 years old. And it was a study taken the year after uniforms were implemented. This is only a year's worth of data. No long-term study into school uniforms has ever been done since they've started. Also, the study that was conducted in Long Beach had a study conducted on it by Drs. David L. Brunsma and Carrie A. Rockhumor of the University of Notre Dame. And it showed that uniforms were not the only thing that changed in the time period, and that there was a grant given to the school districts that helped teaching and other aspects that also influenced the drugs and violence. The second point was that uniforms reduce fighting and violence, and this, again, she was basing this off of the survey, the Long Beach survey, so there were other factors that weren't uniforms. And uniforms don't change a person. You dress up a gangster, they're still a gangster. Kids are always going to make fun of each other, and if it's not clothing, it's going to be something else. She also stated that uniforms reduce distractions inside school, and when getting ready for school, it takes less time. But kids, yes, it takes less time to get ready for school, but when they're in school, they have uniform inspections, and if they aren't wearing what is required, they have to get out of class, go change clothes, and then come back, and that takes its own time away from the teaching and aspects of school. Also, there are accounts from a school district in Florida where young kids that were elementary school came home crying because they were forced out of class to go change into the clothes that weren't theirs, and parents were complaining about this. And kids are always going to act out in clothing. They aren't going to wear specifically what the uniform says. They're going to stretch the limits. So the uniforms are never going to look identical. The fourth claim was that uniforms stress that individuality and self-expression are not determined by your clothing. And she states that with uniform rise, there's also a rise in art and music, but she doesn't show the connection that proves that there's a connection between the two, no correlation. And she also used circular logic, saying if more kids were turning to music and art, it would raise music and art awareness. So circular logic sort of doesn't help her point. And her last point was that uniforms promote school spirit and cost less than average clothing that we all wear. And she didn't really have any evidence that supported promoting school spirit. She just said it promotes school spirit, yay, and didn't really back it up. And the prices, she just used a quote from an article database from sources, and I looked up school uniform prices from Sears, JCPenney, Land's End, and they were all the same prices that clothing that we buy are. So there is no real cost less. They cost all the same, and you have to buy more clothes for kids when they want to wear other stuff on the weekends. So she used circular logic, old statistics, and just didn't have enough evidence to support her claim.
Alright, it's pretty simple to follow despite the fact that there are 5 claims. Each of the claims is pretty narrow. Your challenge on the first claim, it comes up again several times, and that is that the only study that exists on this is the one-year study at Long Beach that talks about this. And then later on you have a challenge that talks about causality issues, or you follow that up with a challenge on causality issues. I think you need a little bit better evidence on that, but I thought it was an okay press on that argument. You did have the one quote about the grants. I'm not exactly sure how the grants have that impact. I think if you looked at the research, you might get us something more specific there, but I thought that was an okay challenge. On the second point, you just have a presupposition that it's the nature of kids to behave a particular way and that you can't change their nature. I think you need some proof on that, because the advocate is in fact suggesting that the nature of kids can be changed by the environment in which they find themselves. And I'm not sure that I'm ready to dismiss that claim just because you come up with a counterclaim without any evidence. You know, the advocate's evidence has been challenged to some degree, but you're not presenting any evidence in the other direction. Let me see. Oh, and then you have this argument about the time issues, and you mention inspections. I thought that's pretty reasonable compared to whatever evidence that the advocate presented on time. I'm not sure that they supported that with any extensive information either. So basically, you just got counterclaims, neither one of which I think is supported very well. But you might as well make that particular point there. The Florida case I thought was an interesting point because it does suggest that there could be a drawback here. It seemed like you kind of skipped to the fourth point. I know that there was a third point in there, but it didn't seem like it was signposted very well. You challenged the link on that fourth point. The explanation needs to be a little bit clearer. I did like the explanation about the circular logic that you're talking about, and then some of the presuppositions on the fifth point about school spirit. Again, that there's an absence of evidence supporting that particular point. You've got a little bit of information on the cost analysis. I think this argument is a good one. It needs to be developed a little bit more to make it stronger, and you've got a little bit more time so you could do that. All right, thank you.